Lone Rider here, and let's talk about Star Wars, The Last Jedi. Now, I was a big Star Wars fan growing up. I was never really a total Star Wars geek, but um, you know, I watched the movies a couple times, more than a couple times in the case of Empire, because that was one of the three movies I had on VHS. I had the James Bond movie for Your Eyes Only, the second Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom, and Empire Strikes Back. And I watched all of those a lot. So I've seen Empire probably more than any of the other ones. But all of the three original Star Wars movies were, I just always thought they were cool, and it's a good story. It's fun. The lightsaber duels are neat. It's just it's good cinema. It's good storytelling, and you could watch them when you're a kid. You could watch them when you're older. Um, you could watch them more than once. The Last Jedi, I actually saw it in theaters, and I'm not sure I would watch it again, to be honest. Um, Now, a lot of people have talked about the seeming introduction of class politics in terms of the casino scene and um, the whole rescue the horses, animal rights thing, which I love animals, but let's face it. Think about priorities here. I'm not so much bothered by the fact that they tried to stick a you know PSA about not being cruel to livestock into the Star Wars universe. That by itself would be harmless if it fit with the story. But they were on that casino planet to find a code breaker to save their friends from annihilation and defeat the evil empire. Oh, First Order, the stand-in for the evil empire. And if they failed, all their friends were going to die. And instead, they take a detour to rescue some racehorses that, well, it's sad they were being mistreated, will probably be recaptured anyway. And in the meantime, all your friends are going to die. I mean, priorities here. Um, but it wasn't so much the seeming playing politics with Star Wars that ticked me off. There was some emotional reaction to that, I do have to admit. But what really ticked me off was the bad storytelling and what they did to characters from the original trilogy that we all know and care about and have been invested in for the better part of 30 or 40 years. So let's start with Han Solo. He wasn't in The Last Jedi because they killed him off unceremoniously in The Force Awakens. And, it kind of ticked me off. The Force Awakens wasn't that bad. Actually, it seemed to have a lot of promise in it. But the killing of Han really left me cold. And I think it was because he should have gone out like a champ. His death should have been heroic. And instead, he was basically just cut down for no reason by an angry emo kid with a lightsaber who was trying to prove to himself that he had the cojones to kill his own father. Because I guess that's what it takes to be a villain. I get it. We're meant to see that Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, i.e., Han Solo's son, is committing himself to the dark side by killing his father. But whatever it does for Kylo Ren's character, what it does for Han Solo's character is it brings his life to an abrupt end in a way that he had no control over and in a way that, like, he didn't contribute anything. It would be one thing if he died saving the rebellion or helping one of the other characters to save it or something. But instead, he just dies because Ben Solo has a temper tantrum. Um, Leia, she was in this, but she spent most of the movie in a coma. The most remarkable thing she did was, well, she only really did two things. She demoted Poe Dameron, setting the stage for Admiral Holdo, purple hair, the lady from Jurassic Park, something Dern, I think, whose sole contribution to the movie, aside from ramming the enemy ships, which I have to admit looked kind of cool, was to have a secret plan and not tell anybody so that everybody panicked and staged a rebellion, which didn't need to happen. Yeah, aside from that, she spent most of the movie in a coma. The only other thing she did was when she was blown out of the ship and put into a coma, she somehow managed to muster enough force energy to fly like Mary Poppins through the void of outer space back to the ship. A previously unbeknownst force power that nobody had ever heard of before. At least not regular fans like me. Maybe if you were a total Star Wars nerd, but I don't think even they heard of this. Because pretty much when that happened, pretty much everybody in the theater with me was like, nobody knew whether to laugh or cry. Like, was this supposed to be a comedic moment? Was this supposed to be like some awe-inspiring thing? Nobody knew what to do because it was so fracking absurd. It was ridiculous. And I'll call it the Mary Poppins moment as long as I reference this moment from the film, because she might as well have been flying with an umbrella. Okay, that's how stupid it was. Speaking of stupid, Luke represents hope. His character was the optimist, forever looking forward, trying to be the good guy. Even when he found out that Darth Vader, the villain that was like the biggest baddie in the universe, was his dad, what's his response? I know there is good in you, he says. The Emperor hasn't driven it from you fully. And then remember, he throws down his lightsaber and refuses to fight it. So what do they have Luke do in The Last Jedi? Well, it's revealed that the reason he's wasting away in Margaritaville on this island is because Luke decided one day in a fit of desperation that the appropriate solution to Ben Solo, his young Jedi student, having some bad thoughts and the potential to maybe grow up to be a bad guy, was to consider murdering him in his sleep. And this wasn't like he just thought about it and, oh, should I maybe? No, he walked in there and he unsheathed his lightsaber. Of course, Ben Solo saw this, freaked out, responded in what he thought was self-defense, and then in a fit of rage afterwards, killed everybody else except for a handful of people that went along with him, presumably becoming the Knights of Ren, but we never hear any more about them. They just disappear. The point is that everything bad that happens because of Ben Solo becoming Kylo Ren, becoming the Darth Vader, if you will, of this movie, happens because Luke decided the appropriate response to his nephew, and this is important, it wasn't just some random student, that would be bad enough, but his own nephew, his sister and best friend's kid, was to kill him in his sleep. That's not like, how about maybe just talk to him, at least, No, that's not the Luke we know. That's not the Luke that still sees good in Darth Vader, of all people. The most baddest of the bad. So I don't know who this crazy old guy living on this island is, but he's not Luke Skywalker. Maybe he's like a clone or something. I don't know. Yeah, that's what they didn't just turn Luke into a grouchy old hermit who gave up on hope and optimism. That would be bad enough. They turned Luke into a guy who was psycho, who was actually considering killing his own nephew in his sleep. Wow. Now, it would be one thing if he started the movie as that kind of a tragic figure. You can't really take back the decision to consider killing your nephew. That's kind of like indelibly etched on everybody. Certainly everybody who saw the movie. Ugh. But if he at least had some kind of transition where he came to grips with that and then emerged a better guy, kind of like his old self, that'd be one thing. But he doesn't. He ends the movie as a crotchety old guy and then he dies. That's what happened to Luke. So the three main characters, Leia, Luke, and Han. Han's not even in the movie because they killed him off in the last one. Leia spends most of the movie unconscious and only does two things: demoting one of the major characters that we're supposed to be following, and then the Mary Poppins thing flying through the air. She spends the rest of the movie in a coma, and Admiral Purple Hair takes over. They killed off Admiral Akbar, by the way. Admiral Akbar was the guy with the fish face, the one who goes, "It's a trap." Yeah, remember him from the original trilogy? A side character, but a well-loved one. They just killed him off. In fact, a lot of people who saw the movie didn't initially realize he was killed off because it kind of went over. They just made a reference to it in dialogue, and then it just, the story continued. He died basically off screen. When the ship got blown up, and Leia had her floating through outer space Mary Poppins moment, Admiral Akbar was unceremoniously sucked out into the dark, cold void of space. Just like all the good stuff from Star Wars. So what did they do? Well, they need to bring somebody in to replace him and to act, because Leia's unconscious. So they bring in this new character that we don't even know and aren't interested in. And what does she do? She spends the entire time she's in the movie being a total jerk, just not telling anybody her plan. And the takeaway we're supposed to have from this, I guess, is that the guys like Poe and people like that who wanted to know that there was a plan. I mean, okay, I get you don't want to tell people all the details of your plan, but if you really don't trust them that much, then lock them up in the brig. As long as you expect them to be fighting on your side as part of the resistance or rebellion or whatever you're going to call it these days, then at least tell them as much of the plan as you can, or at least let them know you have a damn plan so they don't panic and have a rebellion, which is what they did. All of that could have been avoided if, oh, wait, I do have a plan. I just can't, we're concerned about there might be a mole, so I can't tell you the details, but we do have a plan. Okay, good. Maybe even take him aside and say, look, I know you're a hothead, but you do take the initiative. Can you help me track down the mole? Something. Who knows? But at least tell him you have a plan, right? When Poe comes in and he sees that they're fueling the life pods, the escape pods, all of them, and it looks like all the head honchos, the officers, are planning to abandon ship and leave everybody else to die. At that point, when he's like, please you're fueling the life pods? Do we even have a plan? You're just gonna put everybody into those escape ships to get killed? At that point, maybe she should have said, hey, we do have a plan. No. So the only thing she does, except for that, is at the end she decides to ram the bad guy's ship and destroys the main ship and part of the fleet with a new and innovative use of light speed or hyperspace or whatever it's called in the Star Wars universe. That actually looked pretty cool, and that was pretty badass. But you know what? It should have been Leia that did that, or Admiral Akbar, right? If you're going to kill him off. But we know Leia's not coming back because the actress that portrayed her, Carrie Fisher, passed away. Now, I don't know, maybe they didn't know that at the time of filming, but couldn't they have done something with the edit? We do know the original Star Wars, the one from 1977, which was, well, A New Hope, but back then they just called it Star Wars because they didn't know there was going to be more. That was like saved in the edit. I mean, they changed a lot of stuff. And they could have maybe done something with that. Have Leia be the one to fly the ship. If you can't film the stuff because she's dead, maybe have some off-camera dialogue, but have her to be the one flying the ship so that at least she gets to go out like a hero, unlike Han Solo did, right? And then, just stuff that just didn't make sense. Again, taking the time to save a bunch of admittedly mistreated racehorses while your friends are dying and evil space Nazis are going to take over the universe. Priorities. How about the bomber sequence in the beginning? Obviously, these things aren't tactically there's no tactical advantage to them. They're really slow. Most of them get destroyed before they get to the ships. They can barely maneuver. They're like, lumbering rhinoceroses. But what's even more puzzling is how the bombs are going straight down. Now, if they had some explanation like this, the dreadnought is so big it generates its own gravitational field, and okay, that makes sense. You're still left with, why not stand off at a distance and shoot proton torpedoes like they did with the Death Star, but have fighter plane. They had X-wing fighters do that, and those were fast and they could dodge. I don't know. But the whole idea of bombs in space, gravity in space, the bombs are falling straight down, and no explanation is given. At least if you had like some kind of a exhaust coming from the bombs visibly showing that they're being propelled downwards or something. And then the fact that the bomb bays are open to the outside, and the person in the bomb bay, who we find out later is this Rose character's sister, is in the bomb bay on the walkway, pressing the remote control, opening the doors. The bombs are jettisoned. It's open to outer space, and we see her face, and there's no effect from space. She doesn't appear to be gasping for breath, holding her breath. She doesn't appear to be Sweat doesn't appear to be freezing on her from the vacuum of space. Anything. At least we kind of get that sort of ice on the skin look when Leia's in outer space and trying to fly back like Mary Poppins. We see that there's she's being affected by exposure to the void. We don't get that with this woman, Rose's sister, this woman inside the bomber. But yet she's as exposed to space as Leia was. The bottom of the bomber is open. Now, if you're going to tell me there was some kind of energy shield that was keeping the vacuum of space from coming in and keeping the atmosphere trapped in the ship, then show the bombs passing through like a shield. They've shown shields before in science fiction movies. Star Trek, Star Wars, I could go on. Nope, none of that. Just somehow she's breathing in the vacuum of space, and she does die when the ship blows up, but she's not affected by the fact that there's no air, no atmosphere, no nothing, and the bombs are somehow falling even though there's no gravity. Again, all you got to do is come up with some kind of explanation or visual hint, not even a real explanation. Nothing. No, like John Hammett's character said in Jurassic Park, spared no expense. Well, in this case, it seems they spared no effort. Okay, it seems they expended no effort. They could have just tried a little harder, and we would have gotten a more coherent story with better characters that we actually, Rose had the potential to be a character with some backstory. Remember when they're on the casino planet, which I know should never have happened, but she's telling Finn about how the First Order strip mined her planet and then tested their weapons by shelling the villagers. Now this is a horrible, horrible thing, but my God, what a powerful backstory if they had done something with it. She could have been like this awesome resistance fighter, this sort of the sleeper character that everybody thought was just a nobody and then turned out to be like the hardest core of the hardcore. Instead, she was the comic relief / Greek chorus and didn't really do anything. And when she did do something, she prevented Finn from having his own Han Solo moment. Remember in the first Star Wars, Han Solo takes his loot and goes away just as they're getting ready to attack the Death Star. And at the very end, when Luke is in danger and he's going down the trench run trying to blow up the Death Star and these fighters are chasing him, the Millennium Falcon flies in out of nowhere and Han Solo saves the day. He decided to come back. Finn starts out The Last Jedi thinking about abandoning the rebellion because he's looking around. These people don't look like they know what they're doing. And I'm not sure I blame him. I had the same thought, right? So did everybody else in the theater, I think. But what happens? Well, Rose tases him to keep him from abandoning and treats him like a traitor until it's revealed otherwise. Although I think he still really was having second thoughts about the rebellion. But nevertheless, he clearly is on the fence. Now, we know he's committed to fighting the bad guys before. He gave up being a stormtrooper, and he actually faced Kylo Ren with a lightsaber. That's hardcore. I mean, Finn could be a cool guy. But they undercut him with stupid jokes every chance they get, and he really has no transformative moment. He doesn't have that Han Solo moment where everybody thinks he's going to do one thing, and he gets to do something else, and his character gets to change and grow. He never gets that. He would have gotten it if he was going to be allowed to crash into the cannon and save everybody at the end on that weird salt planet that was kind of like a discount Hoth. But the problem is, Rose crashes into him. And then she gives him this speech about how love will save us. And, I get what they were trying to go for, that you got to fight for something, not just against something. But that was the cheesiest, stupidest, most mundane. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm sitting there watching this and I'm like, am I actually seeing this in a Star Wars movie? I mean, don't get me wrong. Star Wars had some hippie-ish vibes in the past. But come on. The space Nazis are about to blow up the surviving rebels in that base and kill all your friends. And you stop the one person who could have thwarted them, because they don't know Luke Skywalker is going to project himself as a Force ghost and save the day in a lightsaber duel that wasn't. As far as they know, nobody is coming to help them. Finn was the last chance they had. And she just... Now, maybe he could have bailed out at the last minute and still survived. Again, maybe he could have been injured. And then, maybe he comes back with a fake hand like Luke did. Whatever. The point is that he didn't necessarily have to die, but if he at least rammed his spacecraft into that cannon and caused it to malfunction, blow up, whatever, whether you wrote it in such a way that he died or bailed out or whatever, it almost doesn't matter. The point is, he would have done something to save everybody and recommit himself to the rebellion and be a transformative character. Instead, he gets to be the passive audience, or the captive audience, I should say, that's forced to sit there and listen to Rose. And, I tried to care about Rose. I couldn't. I couldn't feel a damn thing for her, except a little annoyed and a little embarrassed for the poor woman who was portraying her, who probably could have done okay if she had a decent script. By the end of the movie, I kind of felt like, almost like Stockholm syndrome. Like oh my God, I've been trapped in this room with this thing for 2 hours, and now I just want to see how it ends. Not because I really care, but because, like, I've been here so long. Yeah, that was what it was like. And as soon as I got out of the theater, I had a weird experience. I said to myself, that wasn't so bad. And it was that kind of, for somebody who grew up with Star Wars but only saw the original 3 movies on video that I remember, I think I did go to see The Last Jedi as a kid, but I don't remember much except Darth Vader was kind of scary, when you're like yay tall. So, except for the prequels, one of which I saw in college in theaters, and that was a mistake, and The Force Awakens, which was basically like a rewritten New Hope, and was okay, but what really soured me about it was that, what happened to Han. So The Force Awakens wasn't, I was like, I don't know. But this, Luke was coming back. We were going to get to see Luke again. This was going to be, to me, like Star Wars in theaters, like what I never got to see when I was younger, that I could remember anyway. And instead, I got to watch, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't Star Wars. Maybe it was like a spoof or something. And so, for everybody who says, oh yeah, the movie starts where the old one leaves off, with Rey giving Luke the lightsaber. Now, that lightsaber had been in every Star Wars movie ever. Anakin had it. Not every Star Wars movie ever, but most of them. Okay, this lightsaber was a common thread through the ties all the stories together. Anakin had it when he was a young Jedi. Obi-Wan had it, gave it to Luke. Luke had it, then Finn had it, then Rey had it. Somewhere along the line, Maz Kanata had it. Now, we don't know how Maz Kanata got it because it was in Luke's hand when it got cut off and yada yada, but Cloud City, all that jazz. I think it got sucked into a ventilation shaft or something, whatever. Anyway, that lightsaber tied all this together. So what does Luke do? He just chucks it over his shoulder. This passing of the torch, literally. This cliffhanger that the last film left on, that we all worked up to, that Han Solo died to get us to, is just thrown away for cheap laughs. It kind of says all you need to say about what they did to Star Wars in this movie. And then at the end, with that whole tug of war thing with the force powers between Kylo Ren and Rey, the lightsaber blows up. And, boom, it's gone forever now. The Kyber crystal was left, presumably, or pieces of it. So I don't know, maybe someone could have maybe Rey will make herself a pair of earrings with it, or, Kylo Ren will make himself like a mood ring. I don't know. But, it's like that iconic symbol is gone. Along with the original 3 main characters, Leia's not coming back. We don't know how she dies. But chances are she's going to go out like a sucker, just like Han did. So Leia's gone. Han was dead before this movie even started. And Luke is dead at the end of the movie. And I would argue he wasn't even Luke. I would argue he was gone before the movie started. They replaced him with like a cyborg or something, because whoever that grumpy old hermit bastard was, it wasn't Luke. So when they say people didn't like this movie because, oh, you're just reacting to the politics, or you're just being negative, or you just don't like diversity. No, and by the way, the original Star Wars was plenty frigging diverse. You had 3 main characters. Granted, only one of them was a woman, Leia, Luke, and Han. Only Leia was female, but she was Princess Leia, okay? She was in charge of her whole planet. How many kings and princes have there been in Star Wars? None. And even if you look at the prequels, you want to talk about how diverse Star Wars is. By the time they started making these movies, The prequels had already been filmed, so we have to include them if we're looking at diversity. Well, you've got Queen Amidala, so I mean, hello, two really strong female characters that nothing would have happened except for them. And, no male characters of equivalent rank to balance. And that's fine, because that's the way the story went. But to then turn around and say, but it's not diverse enough, where are all the strong female characters? Hello, have you seen Star Wars? Then there's diversity, generally speaking. Well, what about Mos Eisley? I mean, you look at that cantina scene, or, forget male or female, half of them aren't even human. You've got a Wookiee, a hammerhead, a thing with a snout. That's probably the most diverse bar in the universe. And that scene was filmed in 1977. So I don't think, you could look at Star Wars and say it needs to be more diverse. I think it was plenty diverse to start with. That said, politics aside, most of us don't care about politics. We care about a good story. All right. Even if I don't agree with a political message, it might color how I view the story. But if it's a damn good story, it's not going to matter, or it shouldn't. And my problem is that it seemed to me that storytelling played second fiddle to everything else, to selling toys, to having characters they could check off a box and say, we have this, to I don't know what. Maybe Kylo Ren was telling the message for this new series when he said, look, let's let the past die, kill it if you must. Maybe that's what they're doing in the Star Wars universe. I mean, it did change corporate hands. It's now owned by Disney. Who knows what they're doing? But, just bad storytelling. Again, something like the bombers, okay? Even if you could explain why those are necessary, and clearly they're very counterproductive for the rebellion or resistance or whatever you want to call them, nothing is done to illustrate why gravity in space. All you need to do is put in one or two visual cues in the shot. Hell, you could do it when you're editing in the CGI. Bad storytelling. And bad treatment of characters that we've come to know and love. And I guess they're trying to kill them off so that we're kind of forced to become interested in these new characters. But that only works if, one, the script gives the new characters something to do that is interesting, and two, the characters themselves are interesting. And there's potential in some of them, but, not enough. I don't see a Luke, a Han, or a Leia in any of these people. And the funny thing is, like I said, when I walked out of the theater, I started thinking to myself, hey, I got to see a Star Wars movie. That was pretty cool. It was almost like I was trying to convince myself that it wasn't so bad. And I kind of did forget all the bad stuff until I thought about it afterwards. And what really kept dragging on me was what they did to Luke. And that made me think about all the other stuff. You can gloss over there's no gravity in space. It's fantasy. Okay, there's no force either. I hate to tell you. So, it's like, okay, but then it all kind of coalesces and comes together, and you're looking at it and you're like, whoa. Yeah. You realize how bad it was. Not because of politics, not because of, Disney necessarily, but because they didn't respect the source material of the characters. And a lot of people are like, well, you just are sad that somebody's messing with, something from the olden days. No, I have no problem with building on a story from the past. But completely tearing it down and crapping all over it, that I do have a problem with. And, I mean, just to take the example of Luke planning to murder his nephew in his sleep. Hello, McFly. Anybody home? So, that's my take on The Last Jedi. When I first saw it, I was like I said, I walked out of the theater, hey, cool, I just saw a Star Wars movie. And that kind of took a while to fade. But once it faded, I thought about what I had seen, and I said, you know what? I'm not sure I did see a Star Wars movie. And I definitely don't like what they did to the characters that we've all been invested in for 30 odd years. So I guess whatever happens going forward, we'll always have the original trilogy. And I'm not really that big a Star Wars fan anyway. But, I always have thought they were kind of cool. And um, this doesn't necessarily spoil Star Wars for me, but I do say it does make me a little reluctant to see the next installment. And I may not. I'm going to be honest. I may not. So, yeah, that's my take on The Last Jedi now that I've had time to think about it. And I mean, just stuff that didn't make sense, messing with the characters, having them do things that they would never do. I could see you want to show that Luke is older and maybe a little disillusioned, but planning to murder his nephew? That's not Luke. Sorry. Lone Rider out.